Welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast, your guide to optimizing your life one health tip at a time. This podcast is designed to entertain and inform, not to provide medical or health advice. Always consult your doctor when it comes to your personal health or before you make any changes to your diet, exercise, or lifestyle.
Achoo! Oh, sorry. This is the Peak Performance Podcast. I'm Coach Kyle, and I'm a little sneezy today, and Dr. K is going to tell us why.
So welcome, everybody. We're pretty sure there's mold in here in our new studio because Kyle won't stop sneezing.
That's a joke, by the way. Maybe. I don't know. We're in a warehouse district somewhere. A little sketchy.
But yeah, how would we know if there's mold in here?
Well, I mean, first things first, you look at it.
That's a good move. If you see like black stuff dripping down the walls, just walk out. Don't come back.
Yeah. First point of looking at mold in any environment, office space, house you're in, is literally just look around. Like walk around the house and look for visual signs of mold. Water damage, check under the sinks, things like that.
That makes sense. Smell, if you have a super musty smell coming from somewhere. If your pets keep coming back and sniffing like the same corner of the wall all the time, you might want to take a look.
Yeah, that's step one.
Yep.
So, but if we're going to get serious about things like you actually think you have mold, something you want to investigate, how do we approach this?
So there's there's a few levels. There's air sampling, which is like, you put out those petri dishes and then you cap them after 2 days and like you do whatever with them. Or you can have like the professionals come where they take air samplers with their fancy machines. That's like level one.
I don't love air sampling just because you'll only get
where your AC is blowing around.
Right there. Yeah.
So if you have a drip over there and like you do your air sampling right here and like it's leaking in between your walls, you're probably not going to get an air sample.
Yeah. And a lot of the problems with mold are in walls.
Yep.
So the air sample's most of the time not going to show anything unless it's like a absolutely brutal infestation of mold.
Yep. So then 2 would be probably the gold standard is EnviroBiomics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Ermi test.
Yep.
I don't know why it's called Ermi.
ERMI, it stands for something.
I don't know what it stands for. But it tests a bunch of different species of mold in the home. Mm-hmm. And basically what it is a dust rag.
Yep.
And you go wipe all the dust from all the different places in your house, and then you send it to a lab.
To be more specific, we're talking like your baseboards, your windowsills, your AC vents, like literally every corner of your house you need to swab. Go crazy. And do it right before you clean the house, not right after.
Yeah. And that will give you a test in terms of like what mold is actually not necessarily just floating in the air in that given moment, but like actually residing in the dust in your house.
Yep. And here's my pro tip. If your house is 2 floors, order 2 kits. If your house is large and 2 floors, order 4 kits. Divide your house into quadrants. So that way at least you can kind of guess where in your house it's come from. Because if you have like a 5,000 square foot house and you order 1 swab, you're gonna have like a needle in a haystack to go find the mold later.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Ermi test, is this kind of like the frontline thing you recommend just starting off?
Because it's like $300, which is relatively cheap compared to having like a mold inspector come to your house for like well over $1,000. And then at least it gives you an idea. That way, if you're negative, great, you're negative. And if you're positive, then you get creative.
Okay. So if, say, we do an Ermi test and it's high, what is the next logical step?
Once again, go back and use your eyes and like really start looking now. Like knock on your walls. Maybe even get a screwdriver and like poke around your walls. Make sure there's no soft part of your walls. Poke around your windowsills. Start with that. And if you really can't find it yourself, there's mold dogs out there. And I think that's probably the best thing because the dog will isolate exactly where it is. So I've heard between 600 and like 1,500. It really just depends. Is the mold dog in your city, or are they traveling from like Georgia or Texas too? Like there's none in Florida. There's no dog in Florida. The closest one's in Georgia. So they normally like set up a route where they'll like come down through Florida over like span of 2 weeks. And so however many people they get is how they divide their prices. So if you're the only one, you're paying like $2,000.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So you don't necessarily tell people they need professional mold inspections, like from a guy who does mold inspections.
I haven't found one yet that I like actually trust to like do a really good job.
And that's a huge problem. The mold industry in terms of construction and remediation, they are almost like gaslighted into believing that mold is not a real issue.
Yep.
And their techniques are usually outdated. And
They're like, put some bleach on it. Psh, psh.
Yep. So the other thing you can do at home if you are having trouble with accessing the dog or something like that, if you're trying to find it, is get an infrared camera.
Yep.
Like $300 on Amazon. And you can literally just walk around and look at all the spots and look for the dark, cool spot that'll be blue or purple.
And so that's showing you if you have an active leak, right?
Active
But
leak.
what if like your roof leaked like 3 years ago, you changed the roof, but like it turned into mold, now mold's growing? Would that show up on infrared?
It won't show up on infrared.
So what's the gold standard?
The gold standard is finding a professional mold inspector that does all of it.
That's fair.
But
now
those
you're paying
are
like
like
5,000.
Easy. And this is a guy that like I know of a company that does this, a singular company, and he like custom flies out to your location and like sets up for a few days, and it's a whole thing. Like,
Yeah. And so that's why, in my opinion, the true gold standard for most people is the dog. It's about $1,000, and they will come find the mold. They'll tell you what corner, like they'll tell you what wall it's on, and then from there you can just get it remediated.
Yeah. So remediation.
I know your favorite Bible thing, so start with that.
Yeah, my Bible story.
Yep.
So I think it's in Deuteronomy, but the Bible actually has a process to go through if you have mold in your house. It's for the Israelites when they were roaming around and setting up houses, stone houses. So they said, if there's mold in your house, you deconstruct it and you clean all the stones and you reconstruct it and you wait 7 days, and if it comes back, you deconstruct it again and you clean it, and then you reconstruct it again, wait 7 days, and if it comes back, you burn it to the ground and never live there again.
Yep, pretty much.
Which, honestly, is not a bad protocol.
Yeah.
Maybe not to burn it to the ground, but sell your house, do basic remediation so you're covered in all of the regulatory guidelines, disclose that you had this, disclose what kind of remediation you did, sell the house and move if it keeps coming back.
But basically, you have to remove mold. It's very difficult to clean out of a porous surface, and it always lives in the porous surface. Like, if it's in your studs, you have to cut out the stud, or it'll keep, like, re-exploding out of the stud.
Yeah. The only way to avoid removing it from a stud is repeated hydrogen peroxide sprays and scrubbing, like, over and over and over again. And the cost to do something like that is way more expensive than just removing it.
Yeah, like you can swap out a couple studs, like your handyman can do it in a day.
Yeah.
So just get rid of it.
So
And-
if you have a large scale infestation, this is something that you really need to think about in terms of like, hey, do I want to live here on the long term?
Yep. But yes, so hydrogen peroxide kills mold, vinegar kills mold. Guess what doesn't kill mold?
Bleach.
Bleach. What does bleach do?
Bleaches.
And what does that mean?
It basically means it turns it white.
So it looks like it's dead, but then like it actually makes it angry, and then like over the span of a week, it like re-explodes and grows bigger and faster.
Yeah. So what'll happen with bleach is it will kill the outside 70% of the mold. All the stuff in the inside of the porous surface lives, and then just like you said, after a few weeks, it just gets pissed off, starts spouting out mycotoxins, and grows back.
Yep. Okay. So what if it's in like your AC? What do you do?
That's a hard one. The easiest thing is just to replace your AC system. Honestly.
Like all of it?
Yeah.
You replace your ducts?
Yeah,
Like,
you replace the
how
ducts.
far do you take this?
So this is where you want to get an HVAC inspector to really, and the thing is with an HVAC inspector, you have to specifically request all of the photos of all of the ducts. Because some ducts might be unaffected. So they're non-porous. Ducts are generally made out of non-porous material, the inside of them. And so if you have unaffected ducts, you could avoid replacing those. But for the most part, a full system replacement is the way to go.
Okay. Any more common areas that we should talk about? Walls, kitchens, bathrooms,
Yeah.
AC.
I mean, really, it's the hot spots are the AC, the roof,
Yep.
and your kitchens and bathrooms. Those are kind of where it happens. One I see all the time, I travel quite a bit. Hotels are fabulously terrible at this. It's where the door of the shower opens and closes. Like if it's not set up right, or if it's not like tiled around kind of the entryway of that, that wooden baseboard or drywall will get soaked time and time again.
Yeah.
And that's a hot spot for mold.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So most mold in people's homes, though, is either that location, a one-off leak, a roof leak, or an HVAC problem.
Yep.
So the HVAC problem is a bit of a larger thing to discuss because you can prevent it. So like in my house, I run a dehumidifier prior to my HVAC system. So the air that goes into the HVAC is dry air, not cold air or not wet air to make it thrive for mold.
Yeah.
So I run a dehumidifier and then a filtration system, which is better than HEPA. Then it runs into the HVAC system.
What's your optimal humidity level for your house?
I aim for about 40 to 45.
That's very dry.
It's pretty dry. So you got to stay on top of your hydration. Anything over 50, and if it stays there for more than 3 days, you have the chance of mold growing in your HVAC system and in the air.
So in Florida,
Because it's almost always over 50% in Florida outside.
yeah.
So it's something to be aware of. Up north, it's not so much of a problem.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's
And also it dries
Drier.
out in the winter,
Yep.
which you get a good 3 to 4 months of completely dried out. You have a very good chance of killing off your mold. Even
Yeah.
if you have some in the summer, it'll die over the winter, and then if you don't leak again, good chance it's not coming back.
Yeah. So my house sits anywhere from 40 to 45, and then like if the doors are open, there's a lot of air exchanges. It'll probably go up to 55, and then the dehumidifier will bring it back down. But as long as it's transient, it's not really a big deal. It's that like, hey, I'm at 60 and I've been here for 3 days. That's when you're at risk for mold growing.
Got it. Okay, I think we got a little too nitty gritty on that one. Anything else you want to talk about mold in your environment?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things I hear about mold in the environment is mold at work. And this is a tricky conversation to have because if the mold at work is causing you to not work well, like I'm of the mind that you should have a discussion with your employer and see if remote work is possible and see if you can get out of there. If not, go back to our previous episode where we talk about treating mold, get rid of your heavy metals and see if you can up your tolerance to mold. If it's an allergy, you just need to not work there.
Yeah. Fair enough. Don't work in the peanut factory if you're allergic to peanuts.
There you go. I mean, that's decent advice. Mold in the home. I think that's about it. Any other questions?
No, we're going to go scrub our walls with bleach and get rid of the mold in here.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Peak Performance Podcast. I'm Coach Kyle here with Dr. K.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peak Performance Podcast, your #1 resource for today's top health hacks and facts. You can follow us on Instagram at the Peak Performance Pod or on X at Perform Pod. You can also check out our website and weekly blogs at peakperformancepodcast.online. Again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. We put out a new podcast every Thursday. The content of this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purposes of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider. Carefully read all labels and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the product. Information found or received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem or should you have any healthcare questions, please promptly call or see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Coach Kyle, Dr. K, and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of the information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein.